Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And it's good to see you all here today. I This text we've been studying, the Tenso Kyokan by Dogen, this 13th century text with the title translated Instructions for the Cook, may seem kind of like a quaint enterprise to study this text, or sort of a scholarly enterprise. But I think Dogen leaves us plenty of signals in this text that it's not just about cooking, that it is a guide to how one leads one's life, how one lives in the world. And there's a stress on what I might call reverence, which I think was manifested in, some of you heard the voice of Tenzin Chogyal, the Tibetan singer who preceded the meditation, with songs about a crane and a snow lion. Reverence was very much manifest in his voice. So we'll continue on with some selections from the Tenso Kyokan of Dogen today. And we'll start with this little section that reads, when the Tenzo, the cook, receives food from the Kuzo. Kuzo is kind of like a quartermaster. He or she must never complain about its quality or quantity, but always handle everything with the greatest care and attention. Nothing could be worse than to complain about too much or too little of something, or of its inferior quality. Well, I guess one could take a message from that one should never complain. And maybe that is actually good advice, depending on how you parse the word complain. Whether you can differentiate it from useful information. So maybe if the cook receives some rice and some of it is rotten, it might be useful information for the quartermaster to know that there's something about the way the rice is stored currently that is allowing moisture to get in so that the rice doesn't stay intact. So it may be useful for the quartermaster to have that information, which would not be registered as a complaint, but as information. Whereas if there were some unavoidable problem with the rice, perhaps there was just not enough, or it was not, that season didn't yield good quality rice for whatever reason, weather or whatever, then grumbling about that would be a complaint. And that's the way I take that passage. Both day and night, allow all things to come into and reside within your mind. Allow your mind and all things to function together as a whole. Well, that is the way Tom Wright, the translator of this text, translated that passage. I think Uchiyama, who also did a translation of the passage, was more free in his translation. And I think perhaps it, to my mind anyway, captures the spirit of the text in a more understandable way. In a footnote, Tom Wright indicates, Uchiyama Roshi's modern translation reads, both day and night, everything we encounter is our life. Our life and what is being encountered become one. Both day and night, everything we encounter is our life. Because of that, we put our life into everything we encounter. Our life and what is being encountered becomes one. We exhaust our life force so that our life and encounter might function as they should. We exhaust our life force so that our life and encounter might function as they should. Another term that Dogen often uses in his texts is that of, which is translated, wholeheartedness, which this passage, I think, speaks to. It also speaks to there being a process, allowing things to come into and reside within your mind. All things function together as a whole. So that there's this relationship, this interaction with whatever it is that you are doing or handling. A third section, somewhat longer, reads like this. When you prepare food, never view the ingredients with some commonly held perspective, nor think about them only with your emotions. Maintain an attitude that tries to build great temples from ordinary greens, that expounds the buddhadharma through the most trivial activity. When making a soup with ordinary greens, do not be carried away by feelings of dislike toward them and regard them lightly. Neither jump for joy simply because you have been given ingredients of superior quality to make a special dish. By the same token, that you do not indulge in a meal because of its particularly good taste, there is no reason to feel an aversion toward an ordinary one. Do not be negligent and careless just because the materials seem plain, and hesitate to work more diligently with materials of superior quality. Your attitude towards things should not be contingent upon their quality. A person who is influenced by the quality of a thing, or who changes his or her speech or manner according to the appearance or position of the person he or she meets, is not a person working in the way. A person who is influenced by the quality of a thing, or who changes his speech or manner according to the appearance or position of the person they meet, is not a person working in the way. So, so clearly we're going to make distinctions. And what this passage indicates is that Dogen is talking more broadly than just discussing the ingredients for a soup or a dish. He's also talking about how we interact with other humans, with other people. And changing one's manner depending on the status or the usefulness of other people. So during my career as a physician, I really valued the opportunity to meet all different kinds of people. From all different social and economic strata. From the people who cleaned out the bathrooms at the convenience store to people who had advanced degrees in biochemistry or other fields. So there are obviously distinctions we make. And talking to everyone the same way probably wouldn't work too well, because some people are going to understand more complicated concepts than others. And some people have more background and a different vocabulary than others. So speaking to different people of different backgrounds, different levels of education, different life experiences are applying a uniform approach probably wouldn't work too well. But the uniformity that I think Dogen is talking about here can best be specified with the word respect. That respect can be universally applied, no matter who one is speaking with. And there may be some differences in vocabulary, some differences in the complexity of the explanation. But the respect can be uniform, so that no one is talked down to or disparaged. If you're talking to a child, for instance, you use a different manner of speaking, perhaps, than to an adult, depending on the child's age and the child's level of experience and education. These things, Dogen says, are truly a matter of course. Yet, we remain unclear about them because our minds go racing about like horses running wild in the fields, while our emotions remain unmanageable like monkeys swinging in the trees. If only we would step back to carefully reflect on the horse and the monkey, our lives would naturally become one with our work. Doing so is the means whereby we turn things even while simultaneously we are being turned by them. So Dogen here refers to common parlance in descriptions of meditation about the monkey mind. And he refers to taking the backward step, referring to one of his famous phrases, taking the backward step and turning the light inward in his instructions regarding meditation. So looking at the mind, looking at the emotions, being aware of them, turning the light inward is a way of accomplishing the kind of workflow that he is advocating here. So meditation is a practice, is an exercise in everything else we do. But this curious phrase at the end, or this curious sentence, doing so is the means whereby we turn things even while simultaneously we are turned by them. There's a footnote here. There's another. Apparently, Uchiyama added I take that back. That refers to another section, but there is a footnote. To another writing of Dogen, where he states, "You should remember and know thoroughly that Dharma turns the self. All phenomena influence us, and that the self turns the Dharma. We influence all phenomena." Dharma here is used in the sense of phenomena. So that there is an interaction, a constant interaction between what we commonly call ourself and the phenomena that arise around us. So it's a constant process of receiving and asserting, of listening and speaking. And that constant process, that constant flow is necessary for the kind of activity that Dogen is advocating for cooks and others as well. And if one has simply assertion without receiving, you can go far off the track. On the other hand, if there is receiving without any assertion, then one becomes flat and incapacitated. So maintaining this relationship with phenomena, with everything that is happening, is what Dogen is advocating. Handle even a single leaf of a green in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha. Handle even a single leaf of a green in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha. This in turn allows the Buddha to manifest through the leaf. This is a power which you cannot grasp with your rational mind. It operates freely according to situations in a most natural way. At the same time, this power functions in our lives to clarify and settle activities and is beneficial to all living beings. So Dogen is trying his hardest here to encourage a manner of being in the world that is successful in the sense of allowing for a satisfying life and satisfying work, satisfying activity that is at the same time beneficial to all beings. There is a footnote that applies here that Tom Wright has inserted. Uchiyama has a slightly different translation of this as well. Even when handling just one leaf of a green, do so in such a way that the leaf manifests the fullness of its potential, which in turn allows the illumination of Buddha to radiate through it. This is a power of functioning whose nature is incapable of being grasped with the rational mind, and one which operates without hindrance in a most natural way. At the same time, this power generates in our lives to clarify and settle activities beneficial to all living things. So it's almost like a perspective of animism, to as if the leaf that you are handling in the process of cooking has a spirit, and that even inanimate objects, what we consider inanimate objects, have a presence, a spiritual presence that can be respected and revered. It's not the way that in the West we usually view things, but it has a long history perceiving things in this way. And maybe in the West we're just incapable of perceiving things in that way, that there is actually a spirit in the leaf or in the stone or in the tree. But what if we acted as if these objects that we so often take for granted and use sometimes carelessly have a spiritual presence, that they, like us, have a transient existence as identifiable objects in this universe, that they, like us, are coming and going, and we can, in a sense, befriend them, even as we might need to use them. I think I'll stop there and I guess ask how we can use this text, these sort of life lessons that Dogen is teaching, in everyday modern life. How this advice applies, and how we would do things differently not only as individuals, but as a culture, if we maintained a certain respect and reverence for the things around us. I'll stop there and we'll go into breakout rooms and come back in a few minutes for a discussion together. Thank you very much for listening today.